Happy Pride. How are you?
God, I'm tired. My eyes are a little like crazy because of those Canadian wildfires. The smoke's coming down here. It was so crazy. I didn't realize what it was till last night when my girlfriend was telling me about it. She's like, "Oh my gosh, the smoke up here has just been crazy." I was like, "Oh my god, that's what it is." I didn't even think about it because I had looked at the sun yesterday. I'm like, "Wow, the sun looks really weird today." My eyes are just bothering me, but it is wild. What is weather like down in Music City?
Hot. It is hot.
How
We are
hot?
high 80s, hitting 90.
Ooh,
Like
sounds
so
like
yesterday.
sounds like pool time.
Yeah, hey, I was at the pool yesterday with my laptop working for a little bit. It was quite lovely.
That is a good problem to have.
It is lovely. Just preparing me for the Mediterranean in a couple weeks, Mediterranean in late
I
June, early July.
I'm scared of my early August Mediterranean.
It's hot.
I just went and purchased like these kind of like short linen overall things, just something that's light.
Oh, when I'm in the Med in the summer, I live with just it's lots of linens, lots of I know they wrinkle. I don't care. They're light. It feels nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to find something. There I saw on a documentary once they were talking about how back in like the late 1800s how they were still like corseted up and all the things, but they weren't as hot because
Right.
like it was straight cotton. It wasn't the blended fabrics.
Right. Right.
Little
Well,
neat there.
let's get going, guys. It is today in travel. We talk about all things travel related. Today, we have a lot of hotel stuff to talk about. We have some travel insurance to talk about, some airline rankings. So lots of great things, guys. If you're new, I am Jason Poole. I'm a travel advisor with Cruise Planners, and just love talking all things travel and helping my clients and my friends and my social media followers just realize their travel dreams. Haley does the same thing. She blogs, she Instagrams, she
All the things.
runs a hotel service company. Where can we find you on Instagram? Say hello.
Hello, hello. You can always find me at Haley with a Flair, and of course, my company name's Hospitality with a Flair. Hotel sales. I like making hotels money, but also telling you where you should save it in hotels too. So
She has helped me and many of my friends many times with some great hotel hacks. She's always yelling at me to just put a hold on the hotel, just do it. So
the thing that blows my mind is that bed bug video still being the thing. Like USA Today did an article with me yesterday about bed bugs because they're anticipating, and we probably should have made this a talking point, that there could be a huge like bed bug issue this summer with the increased travel demand and the struggling to hire within the hospitality industry, not just hotels, but like Airbnbs. There's this girl that got bitten up at this bachelorette party she went to in Denver. They weren't in the bed. They were, those nice, cute, tufted headboards. They were behind the buttons in the headboards. So to
well,
start off that great conversation.
moving on. Our first topic today is going to be about Hyatt, and it's just continuing acquisition. Hyatt is on a
Buying spree.
it's unbelievable. So they completed an acquisition of a London-based Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'll be honest, I was not familiar with this company. I was not. Had you heard of them?
Yes, they used to be part of IHG.
Oh, okay, cool. So
They're
it's a it,
offshoot. You know how like Marriott and like even Hyatt had those random like the what is it, the Conquistador or whatever down in
mhm,
Florida,
yep,
like kind of random offshoot. But yeah, they were an IHG company or affiliate for a while.
right. So if you guys don't know, it's a global travel platform that provides direct booking access to around 1,500 boutique and luxury hotels.
Like we're talking like small properties too.
Well,
Like
right. And so I assume like when you go to Hyatt.com, you often see the small luxury collection, the boutique collect, like these tiny hotels. So I assume we're just going to continue
yeah,
seeing more.
you can see properties on there that have like 8 rooms.
Right. 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 And also this wasn't a slide we talked about, but an article I saw talked about how Hyatt is also continuing its organic growth, like with its own products. Just tons of new properties. We can't go through all of them. The one that caught my eye, Haley, I haven't even told you about, they've announced a Thompson Rome.
Oh, whereabouts?
So I don't know. That's all it says. So they're really announcing a lot of properties in in the South Pacific, Asia, and Europe. So Hyatt's a great property, a brand. I love them in America. They kind of struggle, especially in Europe. I mean, they just
That and Hilton kind of struggle in Europe overall. I mean, Hilton's gotten a little better. Marriott, I've always found is a bit stronger, but in Europe, you also see like a core and stuff like that as well. And in some of those cities, like you can't just new build. Like in Rome, you can't just like knock something down and build something new. Like it's very extensive. You run into ruins. I mean, that's what my friends over at Airlines say. Like, never fails. They start, renovating something, then there's ruins, and it's going to take 5 years because all the archaeologists need to come in and look at it.
Right. So exciting news in the world of Hyatt. Now, this was interesting. So, a couple of weeks ago, the Points Guide did a ranking of the best airlines in America, and Delta came out on top. We were excited.
You know that Ken Jarvis has his say that they're bought and paid by Delta over there at the Points.
I know. But what's interesting, so guys, if you don't know, on a global scale, airlines in America don't even come close to ranking compared to it's not. So I thought this was kind of a fun little, where do airlines rank? So they said the number one airline in the world was Air New Zealand. Then it's all the people like Qatar, Singapore's up there. But one that surprised me was our Sky Team member, Korean Air, came in at number 3. Like that was, yep, they came in at number 3. Wow. I thought that was great. Virgin, number 7. I was like, I love me some Virgin. Now, if you're wondering, where do the airlines like that we know come in? Delta, 15. JetBlue, 18. Alaskan, 24. United, 25. So those are
American.
They are not on the list. They are not on the list. So I'm just saying they're not on the list. BA's on the list. They're 17.
List? KLM, Air France KLM?
They have just KLM listed, and they're 23.
Okay.
So I'm surprised Air France isn't listed, but they're the same. Unless they broke them out separately.
What's funny is that when I look at like the typical business cabin configurations between the two, I tend to prefer Air France, and plus you have long-term air.
I'm flying Air France in like a couple weeks, and I'm kind of excited just to see something different. So and I'm finally going to Paris, but it doesn't count. I know. So
you're going to breathe near Paris.
I'll breathe near Paris. So guys, if you remember a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Hyatt, we were talking about how they were almost having this like dual approach, right? They're really focusing on luxury, but they're also trying to do these like extended stays, some of the cheaper properties, especially in smaller markets that can't have a Thompson or can't have a Grand Hyatt. And Marriott is now doing the same thing. So they're launching a brand new hotel brand, and it's going to be really focusing on budget-minded, extended stay guest. And this is going to be Marriott's 32nd brand, which is
I was gonna say something, but I just refrained.
I'm like that is crazy. So again, I think Haley was right when she said, you get people when they're younger, get them a Bonvoy account, get them start only searching at Marriott. Like it kind of makes sense to like get them while they're young, right?
Yeah.
And
you just groom them. You just groom them.
Right. And then you also, I like what you said too, like these kind of properties are great for, like, when there's construction going on in town for like the workers to stay and
Oh, yeah, I mean, even when I was in Florida last week, like seeing family, doing stuff with my dad, I still needed to work. I couldn't quite substantiate the full service. So I'm like, I'm not going to be here to like eat and drink. 'Cause I'm going to be out with family. I'm like, but I wanted the space, so I booked an extended stay. I booked a Homewood, just so that I had the space. I had a little kitchen area, so I could throw like bottled water, my drinks, like bananas.
right.
I just like having the separation of living space to sleeping space.
No, I thought that was great. And then the last bit of news, this was actually kind of some late breaking news that happened today. The Royal Caribbean Group has announced they're going to start some experiments with alternative biofuel this summer. So the two ships the Royal Caribbean Group are going to be working on are Symphony of the Seas and Celebrity Apex. They are both in Europe this summer, and they're really saying they're committed to having a more sustainable fuel story going forward. So I'm excited for them to see it, and I think that's kind of cool to see it on like the biggest ships, and Celebrity Apex is big compared to some other things, but in like mainline cruising, it's very much just like mid size.
It is
Very much
100%.
mid-size, but I think that is really, really great, and hopefully we see that becoming a just focus going forward. I know Norwegian has said they're really focused on more biofuels and their new Prima class ships, and the Sea said something similar recently. So,
Well, it makes sense from a buyer's perspective. Like they're, trying to cater towards, younger demographic, and your millennials and Gen Z tend to be a
mhm,
little bit more conscious about
absolutely, they
and like where the money's going. And the cruising industry has that reputation of not being good for the environment, la la la.
nope, yep,
So
no,
I think also, I mean, it's doing their part, but also catering to the new buyers.
no, I agree. So, I mean, that was late breaking. I'm glad we got it in before the show. So,
So I have a
let's
question for you.
okay.
Who needs an annual insurance policy?
This is a great question. I get this question all the time. As you guys
Preference,
know,
travel insurance preference.
yeah,
Preface.
an annual travel insurance policy. I get this question all the time, right? Travel insurance is an absolute necessity. I mean, you have to have travel insurance, okay? And a lot of people are doing the math and they're like, hey, when I am paying for these individual policies, it gets kind of expensive, and it can. Like if you're a once a year, twice a year cruiser, it's the policy's not that much. But when you're going on 7, 8, 9, 10 trips a year, those policies can really add up. So a lot of people are thinking, hey, I know a lot of insurance companies offer an annual policy. Is that a good choice for me? And it really depends on the type of traveler you are. Most annual travel insurance policies, depending on the one you purchase, have a yearly maximum trip cancellation payout of between 5 to 10, sometimes $15,000. Okay. So if you're the kind of person that goes on trips that tend to be a little bit more premium to luxury focused, an annual policy does not make sense for you because you could have a trip that is over $10,000 and you have to file a claim, and all of a sudden you are not fully covered for that one trip. Or let's say you have a bunch of 4,000, 5,000, $6,000 trips. You have to file a claim in the beginning of the year for a $4,000 trip. Your next trip is $7,000. You are not fully covered anymore. Okay. Because they have a max payout, not per trip. Now, per trip, they have medical coverage per trip. It's not as much as the individual policies. The individual policies have $1 million a medical evac, and where the annual policies typically have less of a medical evac. So to summarize, if you're tending to do a little bit more budget-friendly trips, the annual policy is great. If you're tending to do a little bit more expensive or a lot of trips, the individual policies tend to make sense. All right, Haley, that was a lot. What questions do you have?
Well, I think kind of like, during with Josh's in the comments, it depends on you and your travel style. Like, if you know that you have, some health concerns and whatnot, and your travel style, you need to decide. I'm more of a short-term policy gal because I want all the coverage because I travel so frequently.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I buy an individual policy for every trip. Okay. Every trip I buy an individual policy and I pay exactly what my clients pay. Okay. Like there is no travel agent. I mean, I pay exact same rate.
You get some travel insurance with your credit cards too. Can you overlap? Like, can you talk to that?
So I will just say, if I have the Platinum Amex, right? And they have some travel insurance stuff built in. I have had a million clients rely on the travel insurance of the Platinum Amex, and they were left standing with an empty bag of goods. Okay. All of my top clients, not all, most of my top clients, when I say top, I mean like, the bigger spenders, the luxury travelers who have the Platinum Amex, like 99% of them still buy a travel insurance policy for the trip, because what the credit card travel insurance covers, it starts to be extremely, only if you die, we'll bring home your body, not if you're alive. And there's just a lot of exclusions built into it. I saw Lorette ask a good question. If you filed a claim, can you add more to the policy to cover future trips? So Lorette, so that is a great question. What they would most likely have you do is buy another policy. Okay. Or you could increase it, but the delta between like the 5, the 10 and the 15, like it's really not that much coverage. So if you had the $10,000 one and you had like 3 or 4 more cruises, you need a lot more coverage than their max level of just 5,000 more. Okay. So that's why I am just not a fan.
And that's something to keep in mind on that medical coverage. Like you said, that medical evac, like a lot of people don't realize, like, yes, what are your chances of, being on a cruise and having a massive MI?
Oh, I mean,
statistically, like nothing crazy, but like, one of my good friends that does those excursions in Cozumel, he lives in Mexico because he was on a trip, got severely injured, and the medevac and everything financially, it was, what was it, over $500,000 when he was telling us, Jason? Like,
so I just looked up the Allianz to kind of talk numbers. Their basic plan, which I would not recommend for yearly, has only 100,000 medical. Their mid-tier plan has 100,000 medical. Their top plan has 500,000 medical, where every single individual policy that you buy has a $1 million emergency medical evacuation. So look,
that's not cheap.
I mean,
if financially like bankrupted, like he couldn't afford it.
Oh, right. No, look, I could tell you story after story after story. I mean, this was the no insurance story, but I had a colleague who was on a group trip to Jamaica. They had an accident. One of her clients died. They did not have travel insurance. They couldn't bring the body home. Like, as far as I know, the body's still in Jamaica. So, I mean, there's just story after you just have to get it, and you've got to find the right one for you. I think the annual policy, to summarize it, is really for the budget traveler. Okay. The person who's going on some fairly inexpensive trips, mostly in like Bahamas, Mexico, Caribbean, where it's not as expensive to get you back as it is getting you back from Spain, or getting you back. I mean, how much do you think it'd cost to have an emergency evac from Antarctica or from, Africa on a safari, right? So the annual is great for budget. If you're starting to really travel internationally and your trips are expensive, you really should look at an individual policy for each one.
We got a couple more comments here. Like Josh says, as a nurse, I've had multiple patients come in from accidents on ship. One person fell in the bathroom and had a brain bleed. Can happen to anybody. Janine says, is there a way to sort out all travel insurance to ensure you are properly covered? Travel insurance benefits under my work, my credit card, and a separate policy.
I mean, so great question. So I get asked this question a lot as a travel advisor. I present. Well, let me back up. So Cruise Planners has an exclusive contract and a policy that's really hard to find. I don't think there's anything truly like it that we have with Allianz that we can sell to our clients with Cruise Planners. And I tell people, this is what Allianz covers. Okay. I've used them. I can tell you stories. They are amazing. I personally buy them. Don't get a discount. Like, I buy it, right? When people ask me, well, what about my credit card? What about this? And I'm like, that is up to you to discuss with your credit card company, your health insurance company. I can only speak to the product and the services that I have.
There's so much small font.
There's a lot.
I mean, any policy, any credit card. I think it's hard.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, and I get it. It's expensive, right? And as you get older and the rates get higher, people's trips get more expensive. I mean, look, I mean, I have some clients who their travel insurance is $2,000. I've had $5,000 travel insurance policies. But when you start to book these crazy African safaris when you're 70, that's just what it is. And you know what? They gladly pay it. They gladly pay it. And you just cannot leave the country without travel insurance. I mean, Haley says go on any trip at all. I could have used it in New York. Didn't have it. I didn't have it in New York.
Things are getting sketchy domestically.
Domestically, it's getting sketchy. Yes, I mean, but internationally, it is an absolute must. And look, if I have clients who don't want it, I literally make them sign a digital waiver that they are not able to, bring like any type of legal action to me, to Cruise Planners, the suppliers. They are completely on their own. And, I don't do that to I almost said I don't do that to scare people, but I mean, I guess in some ways I'm not scaring, it's just informing them. Like,
yeah,
like, hey, $300, $500 for travel insurance. Like, you just got to buy it. You got to buy it. So,
I sing all the praises all the time.
I tell people, I know I sound like a salesman, but I'm like, guys, I'm not getting rich selling $300, $400 travel insurance policies. Okay. Like, I just want you to not go bankrupt so you can keep traveling. Okay. Like, that's the real reason.
Yeah. And the one little piece I'll add here at the end, like if you have a trip that you end up canceling and you already bought the insurance, you can move that to another trip.
Yeah, I do that all the time. Yep. Yep.
To throw that in there for anybody that is curious. So
yeah, no, I've had that happen where it's rare now, but back during the COVID era is when cruises were getting canceled a lot. We were kind of moving policies.
Yeah.
Moving policies around. Like, it's kind of rare that happens these days, but I mean it does. And yes, you can kind of reuse the policy if the trip hasn't happened. You can't reuse it if the trip has happened and you want to, you didn't need it, but we can move stuff around.
All righty. Well, the tip of the day is keep a photo of your passport in your phone. So personally, I have this. I use an app called LastPass, and that's where I store it. So it's just not, freeing out on my phone and my photos. But I do this. Jason, do you do this?
I do this. Yep. I do it. I mean, even when you are shop, like I was in Mykonos a couple weeks ago, was buying something like, hey, do you have your passport? And I was like, no, but I have a picture of it, and it worked, right? So they wrote down all the information from the photo. I got the VAT.
The items you have to have your passport.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't expect to buy anything that day, but
this goes even for like a cologne or a perfume and
yeah,
a shop. Like, you don't have to be spending thousands of dollars, but
No. So I think that's a great tip. And look, here's another idea too. God forbid you lose your passport. Going to like the local passport consulate or embassy, that kind of helps them start the process of getting you like an emergency replacement. If you kind of already have a
Mhm.
number down, expiration date, they can kind of start that process faster. So I, back in the day when COVID cards were pretty much everywhere, I kept a copy of my COVID card in my phone as well.
100%. Because sometimes, even when I'm traveling domestically, if I'm not renting a car, I have a copy of like my license in there too. But I use my global entry card. But some places are like, oh, I don't know what this card is. Like, looks weird when you have it. It's like, well, I have these too. If you
Right.
want to see them.
Right.
But no, so good tip, good shout.
Awesome.
You guys remember, share the group. We would love to grow this group to 1,000 people this year. All of our old broadcasts are on the YouTube channel, Trouble with a Flair, and we will see you all next week.
See you guys next week. Take care. Bye, guys.
Bye.